Married couples who sleep in separate rooms, why do you do this? During the summer I moved to another room we call the wind tunnel. Basically I have a ceiling fan going almost 24/7 and a window fan above the bed I run from 7 p.m. to 8 a.m. She has allergies and easily gets runny nose and sneezes from any moving air. My body temp will skyrocket and I'll sweat like crazy in a room devoid of moving air. So she sleeps in a stuffy no air movement master bedroom and I sleep soundly in the wind tunnel. During the winter I move back cause then I become the ultimate body warmer for her. My parents do this. My mom likes to sleep with the TV on, my dad snores and steals sheets. My mother claims sleeping separately saved their marriage. Sounds like me and my husband except my husband doesn't steal the sheets. He lays on them and I have to either wake him up or use all my strength to pull the sheets from under him. Girlfriend's parents do this. They both snore and do it to get away from each other's snoring. I didn't think it was that bad until they talked about having to sleep in the same bed during their trip in Europe. They were at each other's throats because if one fell asleep, the other couldn't. Had a roommate in a hotel that snored so loud we would drag him sleeping into the bathroom and close the door. He seriously sounded like a snoring cartoon. If I even tried to sleep on the couch in another room I will wake up to her on top of me. That's funny but sweet as hell. Is this your S.O. or your dog? My parents slept in separate beds as did my great-grandparents. For my great-grandparents it was a comfort thing. Grandma didn't like not being able to move around the bed at will. She and Grandpa loved each other dearly and she passed not long after he did because she missed him so much. For my parents it was a couple things. As my dad aged his sleep cycle went weird. He would be able to sleep a couple hours and then be up half the night and fall asleep again about the time my mom was getting up for work. Also my mom has sleep apnea and uses a CPAP. It made hella noise back then. Dad was half deaf and the sound still bothered him. Out of respect for each other they decided it was better to have separate bedrooms. This makes me feel better about my husband and I not sharing a bed. Haha. Some people act like that means your marriage is falling apart. Honestly it helps us love each other more because I'm not up multiple times a night with his tossing and turning, and he's not up all night listening to my snoring. Sometimes I have to sleep on the couch cause I get hypersensitive to sound, especially human sound, and don't like the noise his whole existence makes. He gets it luckily. Misophonia. Real thing. It bothered me as a kid. But I really noticed noises when I came back from overseas. Hypersensitive now. I am actually surprised misophonia has not ended up being a reason for a percentage of violent crimes and disorders. I don't believe it's even on the newest DSM. I have misophonia. I don't like the sound of people drinking something or pouring liquid into something. I have to walk out of the room if it's happening because it makes my blood boil, not exaggerating. My grandma and granddad do. She likes it freezing and he likes it boiling. Related but not, my grandparents may share a bed but they do have separate margarine containers. He's a scraper, likes to keep the top of the margarine smooth. She just digs the knife in. They've been married 50-something years and have had this two-margarine system for as long as I remember. That's the way to solve those stupid problems. Also e.g. if one always eats the other's food because they're not hungry enough to order their own, just order a small thing for them anyway and take it home if they end up not eating it. Lol. I do this. I am an absolute terrible person to share a bed with. I snore like a passing semi-truck and apparently, I'm told, flail wildly in my sleep. When we first got married I kept waking up to an empty bed. She would join me for an hour until I was asleep, then retreat to the couch. After a week or two I got fed up and just went to the couch first. Then started several months of us trading off for the couch. Eventually I just went and bought a twin mattress and tossed it in the office. That became my bed. And when we got a bigger house, I just set up in a separate room. Have you been checked for sleep apnea? A lot of people don't realize they have it or how bad it's gotten until they get hooked up to a CPAP for the first time in a sleep study. OMG this. I hate the mask but literally can't live without it, like I'd die. It's bad. If the sleep apnea didn't kill me my wife would because I snore like a poorly maintained diesel engine. Spouse snores, 2 60-pound dogs, and a queen-size bed. No room for me and I need dead silence. You want dead silence and have 2 dogs sleeping on your bed? I'm guessing the dogs are in the other bed. We tried that, but we spoil the pups and they always find their way onto our bed. I sleep on the extra bed and one dog always comes with me too. Works out pretty well. Different sleep cycles and work schedules. He wakes up 3 hours before me. I'm a shift worker. She's a teacher. Your house hunter's budget is $1.6 million. Edit, thanks for the prizes. Glad I was able to amuse. My wife has MS, one of the primary issues she has is vertigo. When I'm in the bed with her, the motion of my breathing, heartbeat, movement really fucks with her vertigo while she sleeps. Also, I snore, so an isolated coil mattress wouldn't quite do it. They aren't total isolation, either, you feel movement, or 2 beds in one room. Also, honestly, it spices up the sex life, adds an element of pursuit and some illicit atmosphere to it. We're sneaking around the house to each other's beds to bang. This sounds encouraging. Every story that I have read so far seems really positive in the sleep section, but I was wondering what happened with the sexy time. It sounds really cool that it spices up things. We blended 2 households. His bedroom was fully furnished and the furniture and closet were full. It made sense for my stuff to go in a different bedroom. We started out sleeping in one room or the other, but I realized pretty quickly that, if I ever wanted to get a full night's sleep, it wasn't going to be in the same bed with him. I've been known to call him a sweating, snoring, slant sleeping son of a bitch after a night of his sweating, snoring, and slant sleeping. We do a your place or mine thing for non-sleeping activities, but GTFO when it's sleepy time. My stepmother's parents took this to a new level. He built a second house next door. They lived next to each other for 20 years before they both passed in a short amount of time. It seemed very odd to me, but it worked for them. At least from an outside perspective. I know images never reflect reality. Not exactly the same, but I had a great aunt and uncle who had some kind of huge disagreement early in their marriage and never spoke to each other again even though they lived together. They slept in different rooms, and he spent most of his time at home in his garden. She took care of the house, cooked his meals, did his laundry, etc. etc. He went to work and paid the bills. At family gatherings the men would hang out with the husband in one room and the women with the wife in another. They remained married that way the rest of their lives. When he died she was apparently utterly devastated. He snores. I have a casual acquaintance that I know sleeps in a different room than his wife. I was curious about why, but I felt it was too personal to ask. And then we went on a bachelor party and I stayed in the same room as him. When we heard him snore, we all knew why. This was the reason I expected to see here. Did you try one of those snore mask things? My sister-in-law needs one of the CPAP, and they moved to separate rooms because her husband and their dog both rip ass in their sleep and it gets hoovered up by the machine and injected into her sinus. We're both 41, been married 23 years and sleep in different beds. First half of our marriage we always slept in the same bed. Of course there was the occasional crying kid who wanted mommy to sleep with them, or falling asleep on the couch or somewhere else. About 10 years ago I spent a year working a midnight shift, so I started sleep on our spare bed in the basement. We both realized we had much better sleep separate in our own beds. After I went back to a day shift we went back to sleeping in the same bed and soon realized sleeping apart was more restful. Over time we bought 2 full-size beds and put them in our bedroom, like the old TV shows. It's been great. Edit, so a lot of comments about intimacy. Yeah, we have sex, I'd say every bit as much as we ever did in the past. We've been married over half our life, so we are really good at knowing when fun time is going to happen. Sometimes we sleep in the same bed, there is no rules, we have to sleep separately all the time. Our beds are about a foot apart and sometimes we slide them together, especially when the kids were younger and they'd end up in our room, along with the dog. Edit 2, yes, we got married at 18. We went to prom together and girlfriend somehow got pregnant after prom when we stopped for soda. So we got married. We both realized we had much better sleep as the ultimate answer to this question. I snore and I'm also easily disturbed by movement, so I'm happier in my own bed, and so is my partner. We've settled on separate beds in the same room, which is the sweet spot for us. It's easy to transition from cuddling to sleeping whenever we're ready. I have a hard time falling asleep without something to distract my brain from thinking. I usually watch a show, documentary, or do some repetitive game on my phone to accomplish this. She can't stand the lights from the screen. OMG, my wife kills me with that damn phone screen at night. She can't fathom why it bothers me. My buddy is basically married and they have this arrangement. Basically they say they aren't one person just because they're dating. They don't want to be the couple who merges into one entity. They are two separate adults and adults have their own rooms. They're two of the most capable and competent people I've ever met in my life. They have their shit figured out. They are the reason I no longer view two separate rooms as a sign of a dysfunctional relationship. If anything, they make me think most relationships would benefit from their "let's not do literally everything together" mentality. When my now husband, of 10 years, first moved in with me, when we were dating, I'd just bought a 3-bedroom house. We decided to have our own bedrooms. More like roommates who were dating than like two people taking the next step. We low-key loved that setup. I had a king-sized bed and he could have a sleepover, but he also worked weird shifts and had his own bed and I had mine and we had our own spaces. It was so nice. Then we got married. And I got pregnant. And it became convenient to just move him into my bedroom. So we became traditional married sleepers. People kind of thought what we did was weird, but it was the best arrangement ever. Something was so satisfying about being together and sharing a house but still having our own private places, too. I realize now, the kids have that with their bedrooms but we really don't. I mean, we are fine and things are great, but there is something special about having a room that is only yours. Married people having to share is kind of strange really, if you think about it.